This happened 2 months ago. I was 35 and had just moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood. I wanted to escape the city chaos. I thought the peaceful brick houses from the 1970s would boost my creativity as a graphic designer. I was still settling in and eager to meet my neighbors. One evening, I was on my couch working on a project. It was quiet. I glanced out the window and saw a flickering light next door. At first, I thought it was just an electrical problem. I didn't give it much thought and went back to my designs, trying to push it out of my mind. As days passed, I started hearing faint sounds of classical music from that same house. It was every evening. Whenever I stepped outside to listen closer, the music would stop. The silence that followed made me uneasy. I noticed my neighbor standing on his porch, staring into my yard. He never waved or spoke. It felt strange and chilling. Then one night, the music played louder than usual. I crept to the window to look outside. I thought I saw shadowy figures moving behind the curtains. My heart raced. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it felt too real. I tried convincing myself it was nothing, but dread settled in. It wasn't just him. Other neighbors acted weird too. Once, I walked to the local coffee shop and overheard two women whispering about the strange occurrences. They stopped when I got close. I wanted to ask them what they meant, but I couldn't. A lump formed in my throat. I felt like I didn't belong. One day, I saw my neighbor on his porch again, his eyes locked on my garden. The air felt thick. I wanted to run away, but I stood frozen. My heart raced. I wanted to confront him, but a sense of danger held me back. Instead, I hurried inside and locked the door. I wondered if others in the neighborhood felt it too. I thought about approaching him, but quickly hesitated. What if I was right to be scared? I didn't want to dig deeper, but I couldn't ignore it. The tension grew around me, making me anxious. Then one night, I caught him staring again. I opened the door to confront him, but my words got stuck. He smiled and whispered something I couldn't hear. I turned to run back inside, but when I glanced back, he was gone. The shadows lingered behind the curtains, and it felt colder than before. It was unsettling. I often thought about the flickering light, the music, the stares. I kept asking myself what was really going on. My curiosity battled with my fear, twisting inside me. I wanted to uncover the truth, but deep down, I feared what I might find. The questions haunted me as I lay in bed at night, unable to shake the feeling that something was very wrong in my neighborhood. The following week, I decided it was time to investigate. I couldn't ignore my gut feeling anymore. I grabbed my phone and went for a walk around the neighborhood. I thought it might help me clear my mind and maybe even gather some insights about the strange happenings. As I strolled past the next house, I noticed a small group of people gathered on the driveway. They looked familiar, the same faces I had seen on my street but had never spoken to. They were chatting softly, glancing over their shoulders at me, as if I were an outsider intruding on their private gathering. I felt a chill run down my spine. I walked on, determined not to dwell on it. I took a left down a side street, a path I hadn't explored yet. That's when I heard it again, the classical music, faint but unmistakable. It was haunting and beautiful. The melody drew me in, compelling me to follow. I moved closer to the source, a quaint white house with blue shutters. The music poured out from the open window like secrets beckoning me closer. Just then, the door swung open and an elderly woman stepped out. She looked at me with a kind smile, but something about her eyes sent a shiver down my spine. "Oh, I see you've discovered my music," she said, her voice smooth like silk. "I play every evening to keep the spirits happy." Spirits? I couldn't help but glance back at the flickering light and the neighbors whispering. Something clicked in my mind. Was she involved in all this? I shuffled my feet, trying to think of something to say that wouldn't sound ridiculous. "What do you mean by spirits?" I asked, more curious than brave. She chuckled softly, her gaze dreamy. "The energy of this neighborhood, it's strong. We must keep it alive." I nodded, unsure how to react. "Right, well, it's beautiful music." Her smile faded, and she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "But not everyone understands, dear. Some prefer their darkness. Be careful." I took a step back, feeling a surge of urgency. I thanked her and hurried away, my heart pounding. The way she spoke felt like a warning. I wondered how many of my neighbors knew her. Were they all in on whatever was going on? As I turned the corner back toward my house, I noticed my neighbor standing on his porch again. This time, he wasn't looking at my garden. He was staring straight at me. That same chilling smile stretched across his face. I made a quick decision and rushed inside, slamming the door behind me. Panic bubbled inside me. I felt the weight of a million questions. Who were these people? What was really happening in my neighborhood? Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number popped up. "You shouldn't have ignored us. Now things will change." I felt a jolt of fear. What did that mean? That's when I heard it, louder than before, classical music coming from my neighbor's house. It was unsettling, almost overwhelming. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped in my own home, surrounded by a neighborhood full of secrets. I sat on my couch, heart racing, the message still pulsing in my mind. My surroundings felt more oppressive than usual. Each creak of the house seemed louder, every shadow darker. I needed answers. I grabbed my phone and thought about calling someone, but who would understand? My friends would laugh it off as me being paranoid. I couldn't risk that. I needed to dig deeper alone. Taking a deep breath, I decided to go for another walk. This time, I wanted to see if the music was still playing, if the elderly woman was still outside. I slipped out the front door, scanning the street. The evening air felt charged, almost electric. As I approached her house again, I saw the light from her window glowing warmly against the twilight. The music was playing, but it felt different this time. It was faster, more frantic. I hesitated at the edge of her yard, feeling a magnetic pull. Suddenly, I spotted Mr. Jenkins, my neighbor, standing in his yard, still wearing that unsettling smile. This time, he wasn't alone. 2 other neighbors stood with him, their backs turned to me. I strained to hear their conversation. "I told you, it will happen by midnight," one of them whispered, voice low and conspiratorial. "Don't worry, the music will guide it," replied another. I froze. What would happen by midnight? The music? What were they planning? Trembling, I stepped back, barely breathing. That's when I noticed something odd. Beneath a large tree in front of the woman's house, there was a small, dark object glinting in the dim light. Curiosity overtook my fear, and I crept closer. I crouched down to get a better look. It was a small, ornate key covered in dirt. My heart raced. A key? What could it unlock? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from Mr. Jenkins' backyard, followed by a low, unsettling laugh from one of the neighbors. I could see the shadows darting behind the tree, as if they were dancing to the music. I felt an icy grip of fear wash over me. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Find the key. The truth is waiting." Confusion and dread washed over me. The key seemed important, but what could it lead to? I glanced back at the gathering in the yard, nervously glancing from the key to the music. Everything felt connected, but how? I reached for the key, the cold metal sending a shiver through my fingertips as I pulled it from the ground. Just then, an eerie silence fell. The music stopped abruptly. I felt vulnerable, exposed. The neighbors turned their heads slowly toward me. their smiles sharpening into something sinister. Then my heart dropped. Someone began walking toward me from the shadows, their figure becoming clearer in the fading light. I took off running, clutching the key tightly in my hand, the whispers of my neighbors fading behind me. Whatever was happening, it wasn't over yet. I sprinted down the street, adrenaline fueling my legs as I zigzagged between flickering streetlights. The sharp sound of my breath echoed in my ears, drowning out everything else. I didn't dare look back. My mind raced through all the possibilities. Who was coming for me, and what did they want? After a few blocks, I slowed down, forced myself to take a breath, and found a quiet spot behind an abandoned car. My fingers traced the ornate key in my pocket, as if it held the answers I desperately needed. But what answers? I didn't even know what questions to ask. I turned my phone on, hoping for a lifeline. Maybe someone would respond if I sent out a brief message. I typed, "Something weird is happening in the neighborhood. Call me." I hesitated before hitting send. No one would understand. They'd think I was losing it. Suddenly, a sound pulled me from my thoughts. I glanced around, heart pounding. I wasn't alone. The shadows were shifting, and I could see a figure moving further down the street. My heart sank. What if it was one of them? One of those smiling neighbors? I couldn't risk staying there for long. I darted to a nearby alley, the pungent smell of garbage and decay filling my nostrils. Hunching down behind a dumpster, I strained to listen. The footsteps grew closer, slow and deliberate. Then they stopped. I held my breath. The alley was dark, but I could see a low, shadowy form standing at the entrance. My instincts screamed for me to bolt, but I couldn't move. My heart felt like it was going to explode. "Come out! Come out!" a voice sang, startling and eerie. The laughter sent chills running down my spine. "We know you have the key!" Panic surged through me, and I fought the urge to scream. Whoever this was, they were calling me out like I was a game piece. But I couldn't let them know I was there. I decided to stay hidden, praying they would lose interest and walk away. Moments passed, but they didn't leave. Instead, I heard another voice whispering, almost conspiratorial. "We have to find it before midnight, or the music will stop." A jolt of realization hit me like a cold wave. Midnight. The music. Whatever was about to happen wasn't just some neighborhood prank. It felt serious. A ritual, maybe. The urgency surged again. I couldn't just hide until they figured it out. I needed to find out what this key unlocked. With a shaky breath, I crept away from the dumpster. I needed to find somewhere safe to think. Just as I turned to leave the alley, I noticed something glinting against the wall. Curiosity drew me closer, but I stopped short. That was it. An identical matching keyhole nestled between two bricks. My heart dropped again. The moment of truth could lead me into danger, or perhaps provide the answers I sought. Could it really be connected to the key? Before I could contemplate further, the figure in the entrance began moving again, shifting towards the alley. I had no choice. I had to make a decision. In that second, all the warning signs echoed loud in my head. Then came the sound of footsteps reapproaching. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, ready to either discover the truth or confront whatever darkness lay ahead. I barely breathed as the figure stepped deeper into the alley. My eyes darted to the glinting keyhole, the hope that it could be a way out, battling with the terror threatening to swallow me whole. "Where are you?" The voice was closer now, probing the darkness with a teasing lilt. "Don't be shy." I couldn't wait any longer. If I stayed here, I'd be found. I had to act. As quietly as I could, I leaned toward the wall, heart racing, and inserted the key into the keyhole. It didn't feel like the right move, but the urgency drowned out the fear. To my surprise, the key slid in with ease. I held my breath, fully expecting an alarm to go off or the ground to open up beneath me, but nothing happened. I twisted the key slowly, listening for the telltale click. Nothing. Panicked, I could hear the figure moving closer, now speaking in a low, sinister tone. "We're on a deadline, and you're wasting time." My fingers trembled against the cold metal, and I twisted the key more forcefully. Then a soft click echoed in the alley. The wall beneath my hand shifted slightly. I jumped back, pulse racing, and I felt the sudden rush of air from behind the wall. I looked around wildly. The figure was still advancing, but I couldn't let this slip away. I pushed against the wall, watching as it began to slide open, revealing a narrow passageway. My instincts shouted for me to run, but escape seemed brief against the noise of approaching footsteps. I had no choice. I ducked into the passage. As I made my way inside, the wall shut behind me with a soft thud. I paused, breathless in the dark space. A weak light flickered ahead, illuminating a cluttered room. Peering through the small opening, I could still hear the figure grumbling outside, now clearly frustrated. "Guess we'll have to find another way then," they muttered. I felt a shiver run down my spine. What was out there? Whatever it was, it seemed intent on finding me. I turned my focus to the room, surveying the odds and ends scattered around. A calendar marked with strange symbols, jars filled with peculiar ingredients, and notes that looked more like scribbled madness. One note caught my eye. It read, "The key unlocks more than doors. It can change fate." Nausea twisted in my stomach. Change fate. Whatever this was, I was deeper than I realized. The discovery swirling in my mind felt heavy. I needed to move, no time to waste. I glanced back toward the opening, but the footsteps had stopped. My heart sank. Did they hear me? I strained to listen, weighing my options. I could go deeper into the room or risk retracing my steps. The latter felt like a death trap, but the light flickering caught my attention again. From the back of the room, I noticed a door, slightly ajar. A sudden crash echoed from outside, shattering my moment of consideration. They were coming in. I had to go now. As I rushed toward the back door, I pushed it open and slipped inside, heart pounding in my chest. What lay ahead could be worse, but I took the leap. The door swung closed behind me, sealing off the chaos of the room. Then, everything went dark. My hands pressed against the damp surface of the door. I squinted, trying to see anything in the dark. The air was thick, making it hard to breathe. I felt a wave of panic rise inside me. Being trapped in this darkness was just as terrifying as being out there. Just as I was about to turn back, a soft light flickered to life a few feet in front of me. I held my breath, squinting against the glare. It was an underground room. A series of shelves lined the walls, filled with strange trinkets, old maps, odd bones, and jars containing liquids that shimmered. The floor was dusty, and I could see footprints leading further into the shadows. I stepped carefully, staying low. Every creak of the floor seemed to echo. What had I just stumbled into? I couldn't help but think that I was in a place I wasn't meant to be. Then a soft sound caught my attention, a whisper. I stopped, heart racing again. Did you hear that? It sounded like a voice, but no one was around. I held still, hoping to catch another word. Instead, I only heard my own breath and the odd rustle from the far corner of the room. I stepped carefully, staying low. Every creak of the floor seemed to echo. What had I just stumbled into? I couldn't help but think that I was in a place I wasn't meant to be. Then a soft sound caught my attention, a whisper. I stopped, heart racing again. Did you hear that? It sounded like a voice, but no one was around. I held still, hoping to catch another word. Instead, I only heard my own breath and the odd rustle from the far corner of the room. I stepped forward cautiously. The walls seemed closer here, narrowing as I ventured into the flickering light. That's when I saw it. A figure huddled in the corner. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaking as I tried to sound brave. No response. Peering closer, I could see the outline of a person, but they weren't moving. Was it another person, someone like me, caught in this place? Or was it something worse? I took a hesitant step toward them, and the figure jerked suddenly, revealing a face obscured by shadows. "Help me!" they whispered, their voice barely audible. I froze, dread twisting inside me. But then I noticed it, a glint of metal in their hand. It was another key. My stomach dropped. "You've got to get me out of here!" They reached out, desperation etched in their features. But before I could respond, the room shifted. The lights began to flicker wildly, throwing shadows against the walls. I stumbled back, fear flooding my veins. "What's happening?" With a sudden crash, one of the shelves toppled over, sending the strange trinkets clattering to the floor. The figure gasped, and I thought I saw their face morph into something otherworldly. "I'm sorry," I mumbled, retreating, the primal instinct to escape overpowering my sense of curiosity. I turned to leave, but as I did, the air changed. A cold breeze rushed past me, and I felt a hand grip my shoulder. I screamed, spinning around, but the figure was gone. Only a swirling mist remained in their place. My mind raced. What had I just witnessed? I dashed back the way I came, the door I had entered through suddenly feeling like a trap. I needed to get out before whatever darkness was here pulled me in. I burst through the door and found myself back in the alley. But it wasn't the same alley I had entered. Everything was different. The buildings loomed taller, shadows moving unnaturally, and a heavy silence sat over everything. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. The figure from the passage was behind me, their eyes glinting with a maddening hunger. "Where do you think you're going?" they hissed, and I felt the weight of their presence bear down on me. I had to run. I sprinted down the alley, my heart pounding in my chest. The sound of footsteps echoed behind me, quick and relentless. I glanced over my shoulder, but the figure was gone. Had I imagined it? No. Suppressing a shiver, I pressed on, trying to navigate the distorted landscape that now surrounded me. The alley seemed longer, twisting in strange ways. I could feel the walls closing in with every frantic step. I turned onto what looked like a street, but it felt wrong, like a dream I couldn't wake from. The streetlights flickered their weak glow, casting long shadows that felt alive. Figures loomed in the distance, but their features were blurred, as if my mind wouldn't allow me to see them clearly. I could still feel the cold breath of the figure on my neck. "Just get away," I muttered to myself, searching for a place to hide. There had to be somewhere safe. My skin prickled with the sensation of being watched, each sound amplified in the heavy silence. Then I spotted a door slightly ajar on one of the buildings. It looked inviting, somehow, in this strange reality. Without overthinking it, I pushed the door open and slipped inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, I was enveloped by a wave of warmth. The room was small and cluttered with antiques. A dusty chandelier above trembled as if the building itself were alive and aware of my presence. I took a slow breath, deciding to pause and gather my thoughts. "Is anyone here?" I called out, voice trembling. No answer came. I moved deeper into the room, my eyes scanning the odd collection. There were framed pictures on the walls, faces I didn't recognize, but something in their expressions was eerily familiar. It was as if they were watching me. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from behind me. I spun around, heart racing. The door I'd come through slammed shut, plunging the room into a tense silence. I dashed to it, but it wouldn't budge. Panic clawed at me. Please, let me out! Then I noticed a narrow window just above a dusty couch. It might be my only escape. I made my way over, attempting to push the window open. Just as I released the latch, the air in the room turned cold, and I felt that horrible presence again. "Looking for an exit?" a voice sneered from the shadows. My blood ran cold as I turned, but only the flickering light of the chandelier illuminated a figure standing at the edge of the room, their face hidden in darkness. I have to go," I said, desperation spilling from my voice. I reached for the window again, but the figure stepped closer, revealing part of their face. Those same glinting eyes, filled with an insatiable hunger. "Don't you understand? You're already trapped, just like the others," they said, their voice dripping with malice. My hands fumbled with the window, pushing hard against the frame. I could feel the dread creeping in, as if the walls were leaning closer. But then, without warning, the figure lunged. I ducked, flinging the window open just as they reached for me. A rush of cold air swept through, stirring the dust around me. I didn't look back. I dove through the window and landed hard on the ground outside. I scrambled to my feet, breathless. The surroundings were familiar, yet distorted, like I was caught in a loop. Just as I began to run, a scream echoed in the distance, a scream that sent chills down my spine. What had I just escaped, and what was waiting for me next? The answers felt just out of reach, but I had no time to think. The figure would be coming for me again. The night was far from over. I dashed down the street, each step fueled by fear. The dim light from the street lamps flickered ominously, casting a surreal glow around me. My heart raced, and every sound seemed magnified. I glanced over my shoulder, but there was nothing there, just shadows. Then, just ahead, I saw someone standing by a fire hydrant. It was a woman, her hair disheveled and her clothes tattered. She was staring right at me, her wide eyes filled with a jarring intensity. I slowed, unsure of what to do. Was she a friend or another illusion of this night? "Are you okay?" I called out, my voice shaky. She took a step closer, her expression shifting from shock to a strange kind of understanding. "You need to go." Her voice trembled slightly, but there was urgency behind it. "Before he comes back." "Who?" I asked, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "The one that follows you, the one in the shadows." She looked over her shoulder, as if expecting someone to appear. "You're in danger." My skin prickled. I know that." Before I could finish, the air around us shifted. A chill crept up my spine, and I felt it again, an oppressive presence lurking just beyond my sight. The woman's expression turned panicked, and she took another step back. "Run!" she screamed. I didn't need to be told twice. I turned and bolted in the opposite direction. I heard her shout something else, but I was already swallowed by the darkness. My lungs burned as I pushed myself. Where was I even going? Suddenly, I spotted a small park off to the side, its trees twisting like gnarled hands reaching for the sky. The shadows stirred beneath them, and I hesitated only a moment before darting toward it, hoping to find some refuge among the branches. I dove behind the trunk of the largest tree, trying to catch my breath. Peering out, I watched as shadows dance in the park, shifting and morphing into all sorts of shapes. The creature stepped forward, and just as I braced myself to run, the woman's warning came back to me. "Before he comes back." My mind raced. If this one wasn't the threat, then who or what was? Without thinking, I turned and sprinted deeper into the park, the ground crunching beneath my feet. I risked a glance back. The figure had stayed where it was, as if it were a puppet on a string, controlled by unseen forces. But it wasn't alone. In the distance, I could hear distant echoes of laughter, chaotic, unsettling. Children? I needed to get out, but the park felt like a maze. Branches grabbed at my clothes as I zigzagged through the trees. I stopped by a bush to catch my breath, suddenly chilled by the laughter that hung in the air like a harbinger of doom. Trying to push the fear aside, I thought back to the dude on the sidewalk. What if he knew more? I needed answers. Then I remembered the last piece of the puzzle, my neighbor. She had acted strange lately, whispering about the strange happenings in the area around all hours. I shrugged the thought away before it consumed me. She'd seen the strange figures too, hadn't she? As I emerged from the trees, the laughter grew louder, more frantic. I noticed something on the ground where the shadows pooled, something small and glimmering. I hesitated, a stone sinking in my stomach. Was it a trap or a clue? Before I could decide, lights flickered in the distance, and the laughter changed to more sinister tones. I stumbled, startled, as the figures began converging toward me in a chaotic rush. Panic surged through me again. I needed to find safety before I couldn't. Then something brushed against my ankle, making me jump. I looked down to see the cat again, its emerald eye studying me with an uncanny familiarity. It meowed softly, almost encouragingly. Just then, as if on cue, there was a rush of wind, and the shadows twisted violently, drawing me back into their depths. The night wasn't finished with me yet, and I wasn't ready to surrender to it. I fled deeper into the heart of the park, the shadows swirling around me like a dark fog. The cat darted ahead, its small body weaving between the trees. Somehow, it felt like my only lifeline. Without thinking, I followed, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The laughter echoed, wild and chaotic, and the figures from the edge of my vision grew closer. It was like they were playing a twisted game of tag, and I was the prey. The cat stopped near a grove of thick bushes, glancing back as if to make sure I was still with it. I pressed on, determination fueling my steps. Just ahead, I could make out a clearing lit by an eerie glow. The laughter now sounded almost musical, a strange juxtaposition to the fear clawing at my stomach. I stepped cautiously into the clearing, instinctively crouching behind a large rock. What I saw sent a shiver down my spine. In the center, a circle of people had gathered, their faces obscured by shadow, but their movements animated. They appeared to be swaying, affirming some unearthly rhythm, hands raised as if conducting an orchestra of the night. And then, in the midst of the swirling shadows, there was the elderly woman, the source of the music and the whispers. "Tonight we feast," she sang, a twisted smile spreading across her face. It was chilling. This was not a gathering of community. It felt like a ritual. The cat brushed against my leg, and for a moment I was torn between fleeing or staying to watch. But the music took on a more urgent tone, reverberating through the air. I felt that I was on the precipice of something monumental, something I didn't understand. I needed to act. Breathing deeply, I took a step closer to the gathering, straining to hear what they were chanting. Their words were cryptic, but laced with a power that thrummed in my bones. The key unlocks the fate. The spirits require their due. The urge to turn back battled with the insatiable desire to know. I flicked my gaze toward the cat, now perched on a rock, watching intently. Then, as if it sensed my doubt, it meowed softly again, urging me forward. I forced myself to move closer, weaving through the shadows until I reached the edge of the circle. I clutched the key tightly in my pocket, feeling its cold metal heat against my palm. The murmurs rose, swirling around me, a symphony of ominous anticipation. Then I saw them, a flicker of shadows darting through the trees, pursuing me. My breath hitched as I realized the figures were behind me, closing in. I glanced back just as they spilled into the clearing, their eyes like dark stars fixated on the gathering. Panic surged. I had stumbled into something bigger than me, and my instinct screamed for me to leave. I backed away slowly, the key burning in my pocket, as the shadows began to swirl around the others. The music reached a fever pitch, drowning out my thoughts. It was like a siren's call, pulling me closer, as if I were meant to be part of this harmony. The figures surrounding the circle were soon focused solely on me, and I felt their hunger seeping into my bones. "Join us," the elderly woman beckoned, but I shook my head. That was not a choice I would make. In that moment, clarity sparked within me. I needed to expose the truth behind this dark tapestry. I was not here to be a part of whatever they had planned. I was meant to uncover it. With that resolve, I turned and ran, navigating through the chaos of bodies. The music blared louder, clashing with my heartbeat, as if the night itself were rebuking my departure. I could feel the shadows clawing at my back, reaching out to ensnare me. But I plunged headlong into the forest, following the flickering lights that marked the way home. The laughter of the gathering faded behind me, but even as I escaped, I knew I'd seen too much to walk away unscathed. As I burst through the tree line and into the quiet street, I halted to catch my breath. The neighborhood lay still, too quiet as it adjusted to the aftermath of my revelation. I glanced around, the comforting normalcy undercut by the memories of the night. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't truly free. I grasped the key in my hand, still uncertain of its purpose, knowing it had unlocked a door to otherworldly truths. Months have passed since that night, and I've moved again, settling somewhere far from the whispers of that neighborhood. Sometimes, though, I can still hear echoes of the music in my dreams, its haunting melody lingering like a specter just out of reach. I think of the elderly woman and the others who danced with shadows, and I wonder how many other neighborhoods contain such secrets. I try not to dwell on it, but I can't truly forget. The night changed everything, intertwining my fate with a darkness that remains just beyond my grasp, always lurking, always waiting.